Morning Star Baptist Church loves its family, its community, and its country, but most importantly, loves Jesus Christ. Hear their ministry Sunday mornings at 9:30 on WSIC.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.
And welcome to All Things Saine. I think we're live. I have a little bit of trouble audio this morning, but I am glad to be back on. I am your host, State Representative Jason Saine. Great to be with you today. Had a great show last week. Had Jeff Tart, candidate for state auditor. We're going to talk to a number of candidates here in this marathon to a March when we get to our presidential primary, but also primaries for folks of state house, state senate, and people who are running statewide and local as well. We'll get a lot of those folks on air so that you'll get a chance to meet them, find out what makes them tick. Later in the show, we're going to have Dr. Grant Campbell. He's running for State House, District 83. Excited to talk to him, longtime friend. Be great opportunity to hear a fresh perspective on someone running for the State House. But before we get to that, it is primary time, and joining the show again, he's been on the show before, Stephen Wiley. He's the caucus director for the House Caucus. He works with me and other House GOP members that as we once we get elected, but also he's in charge of our reelection effort and our recruitment effort. And so a little bit of controversy, as happens most every election filing cycle. Stephen, you're in the Insider today, and you know, I woke up to this quote, and I didn't necessarily expect to see it, but maybe I should have. But you're quoted as saying Democrats decided they wanted a Nazi in the Republican primary. Interesting quote. I know a little bit of the detail behind it, but tell us a little bit about that. What's happening?
Yeah. So essentially, we've got some standards in state law about who is eligible to run, who's not, and really it comes down to are you eligible to be a registered voter in North Carolina? And if you are, you're eligible to run for office, with some other stipulations like, you know, do you need to live in the district that you're running for a certain amount of time, and things like that. There are some reasons for someone to not be eligible to vote. Being a convicted felon who has not completed all of their probationary sentence or anything tied to that, which includes any fees or fines that are related to that. That can preclude someone being registered to vote. And up in Rockingham County, up on the Virginia line, there's this gentleman who ran last time, but we didn't catch it because of how crazy the filing period was back in 21 and 22. We saw that he filed again, and he had a number of felony convictions and spent a lot of time in jail in the 1990s and 2000s for those felony convictions. And so we did the investigation we could in the limited amount of time, because you only have 10 calendar days from the close of filing to actually submit a candidate challenge on someone that's on the ballot. So it was really till Christmas Day we had to submit it. And we had a couple hearings, and the initial hearing January 3rd with the county board, they unanimously voted to remove him from the ballot. He then appealed to the state board, and that's where the silliness really hit another level. So it's pretty much devolved from there, and every day has been a new adventure and finding out new things about just how low quality of an individual this gentleman is. We found out the night of January 3rd, after 12 hours after the hearing, that he's a neo-Nazi, or at best, you know, at best, I use that term loosely, a Hitler fetishist. So clearly a lot of issues, but you know, the First Amendment protects people from having, you know, those extreme views, and they can still run for office. And so for us, the closest weapon to hand that we had to fight him being on the ballot was his string of felony convictions. And just the revelation that he was a neo-Nazi added a whole layer of political intrigue on top of it and made everything really, really complicated.
Well, it certainly comes as unexpected. What really is unexpected is that the state board has made the action that they've taken, I guess it was yesterday, to allow him to move forward. Because as I understand it, and when I fill out my paperwork, and you know, God knows I'm not perfect on paperwork, but I do try to get my filing right. And they asked the question, and you tell me if I'm remembering incorrectly, but it was a month ago that I filed. I had to check a box that said, I've not been convicted of any felonies. I tested that, and if I attest otherwise, if I'm essentially not being truthful, that too could probably be a felony, I think, or at least it's against the law. So, is that not an issue here as well? If he's been convicted of felonies and didn't check it?
It absolutely is. And the question is, have you ever been convicted of a felony? And that was a big sticking point in the second county level hearing where he claimed, he started out his testimony saying he'd been convicted of 0 felonies ever. Within 15 minutes, he admitted to 5. Those were just 5 that he admitted to within 15 minutes. There were more. And the question became with that part is he knowingly lied on his candidate filing where he checked no. And the previous time he filed, he only said he had been convicted of 1, maybe 2 felonies, certainly not all of them. And so the statute, it's kind of, from my layman's perspective, is there's kind of a gray area about the process for if someone makes a mistake, like a typo, like misspelling their name, giving the wrong address, giving the wrong year, versus knowingly lying. And the statute could be silent on whether someone lying is grounds for them to be, removed from the ballot or anything like that. The next step we would have after all of this would be to appeal to the NC Court of Appeals, but time is just an issue. Ballots have to be printed, I believe, today. And so just time is the biggest resource that we all have or need. And with early voting beginning in 4 or 5 weeks from today or from tomorrow, and then the election itself being 7 or 8 weeks away, it's just time is not on our side for this. And so it's likely that it's all but assured that Mr. Gibson will be on the ballot. And then Representative Pirtle beat him 80 to 20% last time, and I'd be shocked if it's anything if it's anywhere remotely close. I think Representative Pirtle will beat him once again. Retired police chief, respected member of the community, and you couldn't have 2 bigger contrasts. So
I'd sort of say you couldn't have a bigger contrast between the 2 candidates. I am interested to get your opinion, and we've got about a minute and a half, but on the fact that I know when filing ended, the state Democratic Party came out bragging that they had filed someone for every office, right? Which there's no primary here. They'd filed challengers, right? So there's no primary here. One, they were absolutely incorrect because I didn't get a challenger in either the primary or the general. Glad of that. But then Representative Pirtle only had a primary challenger. So to say that, hey, we recruited people all across the state in every office. Is there any chance that this guy might have been recruited by the other side just to cause confusion and wreak havoc like this? It's been said.
Right. I'd be curious to know who their alleged recruit in Rockingham County that they were claiming had filed for more than a week after filing closed was. If it's not him, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt that maybe it's not him, but let's find out who they're claiming credit for in this race of 2 people. If they're not going to claim Pirtle. And then, we know that Roy Cooper's DGA medals in Republican primaries. They spent heavily in Republican governor primaries in 2022. It's not necessarily beneath them to do it again. So we'll see.
Well, it's always interesting. We'll have you back on the show, kind of get an update as soon as we can. You're listening to All Things Saine here on WSIC. Stephen Wiley, thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
There's more All Things Saine with NC Representative Jason Saine on the way from 105.9, 100.7 WSIC.
Well, the first of 2 blasts of Arctic air has now arrived.
Dr. Campbell,
that this morning for the farmers and rural spots, starting out in the mid-teens. Cold all day, even with sunshine. We're staying in the 30s for our Wednesday. Back down into the teens tonight. Getting a little bit warmer as we climb up into the low 40s for our Thursday and Friday. Getting cold again with teens and 30s on the way by the upcoming weekend. And that's your forecast from the WSIC Weather Center. Stay warm. I'm
saying that.
Hey guys, just over 2 minutes.
the screenshots.
Hey, Bill, just so you know, I don't hear the music when we go out or come in, but I think I faked it well enough.
Yeah, you did. You actually did hit your mark really well. Let's see.
Caine Center for the Arts this Saturday.
Sorry, Steve, didn't mean to
Listen each weekday morning for your chance to win tickets and meet and greet passes. And come hang out with us prior to the show.
I'll roll.
WSIC will be
all right,
in one of
you,
Caine
Dr.
Center
Campbell.
for the Arts.
I'll catch up with
6
you later.
to 7
Right.
p.m. Rocky Lynn this
Take care.
Saturday. CaineArts.org. That's CAIN Arts.org.
He's a good lad.
He is a good guy.
Mooresville Parks and Recreation presents the Hitmen of Country, playing at the Charles Mack Citizen Center Friday, January 19th.
No.
Representative Saine, can you hear the commercials right now?
Country have toured and recorded with some of the country's greatest
You can.
artists, like Keith Urban,
cannot.
Trace
Oh,
Atkins,
cannot. Okay.
Travis Tritt, and Jason Aldean. For more information, go to visitmooresville.com. That's visitmooresville.com.
Don't worry, we're going to break something right now.
Birkdale on Ice is still going on through January 28th. Time to lace up your skates and hit the ice. To make sure you can skate when you want, we recommend you making a reservation. For skate session info, including times and pricing, visit birkdalevillage.com. Want to attend the Greater Charlotte Home and Landscape Show? How about the Charlotte Home and Remodeling Show? Throughout the day, you have your chance to win tickets. Listen each day to Good Morning LKN, the Home Ad Show, the News Drive at 5, and the Scoreboard. Each show gives you your chance to win. The Greater Charlotte Home and Garden Show, February 23rd through the 25th. The Charlotte Home and Remodeling Show, January 26th through the 28th. Have an event you'd like to tell people about?
30 seconds.
Yard sales, estate sales, and everything in between? Visit WSICnews.com and click on events to submit your event today.
15
if
seconds.
you have an upcoming event, let WSIC spread the word. Go to WSICnews.com and click on the community calendar button. WSIC, proud to be part of your community.
All right, here we go.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.
All Things Saine. Representative Jason Saine. And welcome back. You're listening to All Things Saine here on WSIC. I am your host, State Representative Jason Saine. Remote today from home. I got a lot of things going on in the district, and that short drive across the lake or toward the lake was not going to work for this morning. But nevertheless, through the power of technology, we're able to do the show, and glad to do it. As you know, if you're a regular listener, sometimes you catch me in Raleigh, sometimes you catch me traveling somewhere else, either on legislative business or personal business. Turns out you do have to have a side hustle if you're a legislator in North Carolina and still trying to make a little bit of money to keep your family afloat. So we do it from anywhere we're at. And today I'm doing it from right here in District 97 in Lincoln County. I've got a meeting at my office, just a short little bit, and then over to Gaston College on a healthcare meeting. So nevertheless, that is the life of a legislator. Glad to let you have a little sneak peek of that. If you're listening to the morning show this morning, Justin was talking about how we at least try to break it down and explain it. But it is election season, and we are in a, quite frankly, a compacted time for what would normally be an elongated process for primaries. And the reason being, because it's a presidential election year. Joining me on the show right now, I've got my good friend, Dr. Grant Campbell, who is running, if I got the district right, Grant, it is District 83. Which consists of Cabarrus. And is it all Cabarrus?
No, it's about 40% Cabarrus and about 60% Southern Rowan County.
Right. That's right. And I don't have my notes in front of me. I thought I'd remember it, but knowing you for a long time, I don't have your bio in front of me, but our listeners should know you're no stranger to public service. You serve 3 tours in the Middle East. You're a physician, combat veteran, that got your hands dirty on our behalf. And for that, we appreciate that, sir. But then after you left the military, you came back. Of course, we're in private practice and have been in that for since coming back. You're a Chapel Hill guy, went to school at Chapel Hill. We forgive you for that. I'm just kidding. But no, my son loves them. So I guess there's some redeemable qualities there. It's particularly Coach Davis. But no, man, it is great to have you on the show. And you're running. You do have a primary, but you're running. You were a candidate last cycle for a hot minute. Then some people went to court and didn't like our district, so we had to redraw. And now you're back again. So you're running. Glad to have you on the show.
Well, thank you, Jason, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, you do have an interesting career, and will bring a lot of different perspective to the legislature. You're one of the few doctors I get in a room with, and my heart rate doesn't go up, and so you don't make me nervous, which is nice. But look, having someone with your background, both from your military service, from your service as a physician, and then also your service. You're the vice chair of the community college board. Is that correct in North Carolina?
That is correct. Proudly serving. I'm a big fan of the great 58 campuses that we have.
We do have some marvelous campuses. Like I said, I'm going to Gaston College this afternoon for a meeting on healthcare. I find myself over there a good bit, and they've got a campus in Lincoln and a campus in Gaston. So it's not just Gaston College, but I think we'll stick with the name. We don't want to confuse everybody, but great work there. I've done a lot of, in my background, it's a lot of my schoolwork. I did classes in the summer when I was going to school at both NC State and UNC Charlotte. Pick up a class or two, which would help lighten my load. But also got my firefighter certifications at Gaston College and at Cleveland, and also McDowell. So, but you own that in that position as vice president of the community college system. You deal a lot with workforce, and we know that if a state's growing like ours, workforce is going to be key to what we're talking about.
I agree. And look, I'll probably show my bias and my love for the community college system, but I think that system is probably positioned better than anyone to help meet those workforce needs with the flexibility and the rapidity that it needs to. And the good thing is, we can start seeing industries that are coming into the state. We're number one state for businesses, 2 years in a row, I believe now. And we can identify those even before they open their doors to start letting the citizens of the state take advantage of that economic growth, to get them trained, to have those job opportunities. And we've got a great group in the community college system office. We get great assistance from the Department of Public Instruction as well. But it's a good problem to have, is that when you have that kind of huge demand for workforce to be filled, it's an opportunity to allow people in the state to have the opportunity to get jobs that pay significantly more than they're paying now. And we have to be able to meet them where they are. And sometimes that means getting training and education programs in the evening or on the weekends. The vast majority of our students in the community college system are adult learners that have a career and a job already. And they're not in a situation with their family finances. They can just quit work to get a certification. So we have to be flexible with them. Because I'm all for economic growth, but I want the primary beneficiaries of that economic growth to be the citizens that are already here.
Oh, that's an excellent point. And, I can remember growing up, on certain nights of the week that my mom was in healthcare. She had worked at the hospital here locally, and then had worked for several doctor's offices. And that was her initial training at a CVCC. Then she decided she wanted to get into real estate, and made a career out of that. We were young kids at the time, and this is where we learned that my dad wasn't that great of a cook at night. But nevertheless, we suffered through it. But it really spoke to, you're speaking to what was the experience for my family, right? It was an opportunity for my mom, who was working a day job, would come home quickly and then go to school at night. And to get her real estate certifications. She was a real estate appraiser. She did most of that work at Gaston College. And various other community colleges in our area. We're blessed that we have several that are an easy drive from Lincoln County. But that speaks to exactly what you're talking about. Is it's not just for economic growth; it is for economic opportunity for families all across the state. I think that's strong. But I also think, we get people from different walks of life at the legislature. And that may not have been their experience, and they may not understand it completely. Doesn't make them bad people, doesn't make them not experts on something else. Just means that may not have been their experience. And I think your understanding of that and what community college system can mean for somebody, for a family, for an individual, I think is huge. I know that we have opportunities with our school, where our son goes to school, his high school. Partners with Gaston College, and he can actually get a certification really before he ever graduates. And I think that, which I want him to do, because I always tell him, so look, have a marketable skill, have something that someone will always need. regardless of what you do. You might still go on to a 4-year institution and do whatever it is you want to do to achieve your dreams, but making sure you touched on something, making sure that, and say it a different way, but making sure that we're nimble so that we can meet, the market needs, so that understanding that I always call myself an adult learner. I'm always learning something new, and it might be trade skill wise, or whatever. But we have to be there to be able to accommodate our citizens so that we can stay ahead of the curve.
I agree. And I think that flexibility is key. I'll give you a perfect example. Is there's several community college campuses that they have line worker programs, and there's such a huge demand for certain things like line workers and welders and things like that. We have 18-year-old students that can start that program. It is an 18-month program, and usually by month 9, all of them already have a job offer that's sealed up. And these folks are starting at $80,000 to $90,000 a year. And so I think we've got to get the word out at some of these career opportunities that are out there to get that excellent pay, find out their needs to get them trained. How I got involved initially with the community college system was we had my guys coming out of the military, and we were having difficulty with educational institutions and certification bodies recognizing the training that they already had. And I'll give you an example. My combat medics that worked as paramedics under fire, but when they got out of the military, they weren't even certified to be an EMT. Well, the problem with that is not only the economic opportunity, but these guys were using all of their GI Bill money to take classes and certifications that they already knew. And so by the time they were certified for skills that they already had, their GI Bill money was gone. So when it was time to actually do some upward mobility for economic opportunity, they didn't have any more educational funds. And almost all the campuses are kind of getting involved with that. But Fayetteville Tech was probably the standard bearer. And economic opportunity with the workforce, it's wide open right now. And I got to put a plug in for the legislature. You guys have been our partners in this. Y'all have been supportive in every way we've asked. And it's just great to see people get that kind of opportunity.
Well, glad to do it. Like I say, there's many of us who understand the need, and even if they don't come to it understanding it, as we learn more, as the feedback that we get with the folks that we appoint to these boards, like you, who provide us valuable feedback. It's not a money suck. We get a lot in return. A lot in government. Sometimes you wonder if you're getting something in return for it. That's never the case, really, with the community college system. And I think ours is just has really, as other states, as I talk to legislators from other states, they want to model what we're doing. They want to find out how we're doing it, what we're doing, and how we're always able to stay, ahead of that curve. And I think, guys like you, men and women like yourself, who've had real world experience. I mean, you've got obviously a 4-year degree, a doctoral degree. But you've also lived real life, and with your time in the military, and as a physician, you really understand what it's like to have a workforce that's either competent and ready, or one that there's the other alternative, which means you don't have it, and that really impacts upward mobility of families and people here in our state. We're talking with Grant Campbell. He is running, Dr. Grant Campbell. Should I call you Dr. Grant Campbell, Lieutenant Colonel?
It's easy.
We'll call you Grant. Great friend. Really one of the great candidates that we have running for office. I think we've done a stellar job at recruiting, and recruiting sometimes just means, hey, that guy raised his hand and we talked to him. You're that guy. You want to go do this. And so we're looking forward to having you at the legislature. We'll be back after the break. You're listening to All Things Saine. On WSIC, we're talking with Dr. Grant Campbell, candidate for House District 83. We'll be back in just a moment. Appreciate you listening here on this fine, sunny, and cold day.
Keep it right here. All Things Saine with NC Representative Jason Saine will return after this short break on 105.9, 100.7 WSIC.
The clock helps. I got a new app on my phone.
Now arrived, starting out in the upper teens this morning for the farmers and rural spots, starting out in the mid-teens. Cold all day, even with sunshine. We're staying in the 30s for our Wednesday. Back
probably got
down
about a little more than 2.5 minutes.
Getting a little bit warmer as we climb up into the low 40s
is there anything
for our Thursday and Friday. Getting cold again with teens and 30s on the way by the upcoming weekend. And that's your forecast from the WSIC Weather Center. Stay warm. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
Happening now at Randy Marion Ford in Statesville.
That's right, folks. We have flipped the calendar. 2024 is here. Happy New Year from Randy Marion Ford Lincoln. Come see us this year for all your car needs, whether it's a new Ford, a new Lincoln, quality pre-owned, Randy Marion Ford in Statesville. We have got you covered. I-77 exit 49B. Look for the spinning car, folks, because that is where the deals are.
RandyMarionFord.com.
Thanks for calling Discover. This is Anjali.
Hi, it's Jennifer Coolidge. I just got an alert for a strange charge on my card.
No problem. We make sure you're never held responsible for unauthorized purchases on your Discover card. Let's see. Did you purchase something from a t-shirt cannon store yesterday?
Absolutely not. No, I already have like 3.
$0 fraud liability guarantee. It pays to Discover. Learn more at discover.com/credit card. Limitations apply.
Jim Gaffigan here with some more Straight Talk. Now you can get a Walmart Plus membership, plus not pay for it, because it's included with Straight Talk wireless plans. You get free delivery with Walmart Plus, plus a Paramount Plus subscription included. Plus, you pay less for gas. That's a lot of pluses.
Only Straight Talk gives you unlimited 5G data and Walmart Plus included on select plans for free.
Straight Talk wireless, available at Walmart.
Requires service on Gold or Platinum Unlimited. One offer per eligible account. Paramount Plus Essential Plan only. Separate registration required. Additional terms apply.
Hello, friends. This is Dwight with Gullion's Christian Supply and Homeschool Headquarters, inviting you to join the Gullion family and staff in praising the Lord for 30 years of providing you with trustworthy
All right, guys, about 30 seconds.
books, Bibles, music, gifts, and supplies.
And
We so
started
appreciate
talking
your
to him.
support and friendship over all these years. With
I'm probably not the guy
locations
you
in
want to vote
King
for.
and Statesville, North Carolina, visit us again soon for encouraging fellowship and essential provisions for your Christian life. Gullion's Christian Supply and Homeschool Headquarters, where the Bible stands.
All right, guys, here we go.
Story,
15 seconds.
We have to end our dependence on China.
Have your say.
This debt crisis is
5
going to
seconds.
start calling you back big time.
This is WSIC News Talk Now.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.
All Things Saine with Representative Jason Saine. And welcome back to All Things Saine here on WSIC. Really appreciate you tuning in today. I'm your host, State Representative Jason Saine. Another fun episode. If you listen to us on the podcast, appreciate that. If you listen to us live during the broadcast, also appreciate that. Today, we are remote. I've got my good friend, Dr. Grant Campbell, who is running for the State House. He's running for House District 83, which consists of Cabarrus and Rowan counties. We're talking a little bit, even during the break, about some of his life experiences and how he come to be where he's at today. We all have our own individual stories to tell, and I think Grant's is one of the most interesting ones, and I think one of the ones that will be very beneficial to us, not just to his constituents, but really to all of us in North Carolina, but particularly at the legislature when you start to do your work. Fingers crossed, everything goes your way and you get elected. But you sir, come from a really humble beginnings. You grew up in a single parent household. How tell us about how you grew up and how you got to where you are today.
Well, and I tell you, it's simply probably the easiest way to sum up how I got to where I am today. Any success is because of that mother I had. We grew up single parent household. We had our challenges, and there were times that we had to rely on the generosity and charity of others to get by. But my mom kind of inculcated on us from a very early age that if you want to escape poverty and you want to have independence and you want to have success, then you need to get an education, because that's the great equalizer. Even if you don't have a lot of money or you don't have a lot of connections, if you perform, someone's going to take notice of that. So even as a young kid, when you didn't want to, she demanded that I do very well in school. She always told us, she said, I'm not going to expect anything that I don't think you're capable of, but I know you're capable of straight A's. So by God, you better come home with straight A's. And there were consequences if I didn't. But I think, doing that and her instilling that discipline in me, I was able to get into UNC to go to college. Got there, fell in love with the place. Like you said you would forgive me for being a Carolina guy, so I'm going to hold you to it.
It's a great school, a beautiful campus. I'll give you that.
Well, thank you. And And it was a great experience for me. I made great friends there. I met my wife there. My wife was actually the first girl that I met at Carolina when I got out of the car to move in. Now, I was too chicken for a year to ask her out, because she was a sophomore and I was a freshman. I think she finally gave up and asked me out, but kind of got an interest in medical school and was fortunate enough to get accepted into medical school, and came to Charlotte for my residency. And then I've been practicing in this area. Now, because of that humble beginning, but getting those opportunities, I kind of fell in love with America. And that there's very few places, and I've been to, I think the last count is 41 different countries. There are very few places on this earth where you can have that kind of opportunity, starting kind of on one of the lower rungs of the economic ladder. And because of that, I felt like I had a debt that I owed to the country and my community. So every part of my life, I feel like I have to dedicate part of it to service, whether it's serving my patients, serving charities. And so a few years after 9/11, they started talking about they had just a desperate shortage of physicians with surgical experience to go into combat zones, and soldiers were not getting the care that they need. And I talked to my wife about it, and she initially thought that I was on drugs because we had a young child and we were thinking about number 2, but I felt God's calling to do that. So I'd been in private practice for 7 years and decided to join the reserves. And at 37 years old, went to officer's basic training in the Army. And I was deployed to Iraq in 2010 as a general surgeon, and then Afghanistan twice in 2013 and 2015 as a trauma surgeon, with the last rotation being with the U.S. Special Forces. It was tough, but I loved it. I would go back tomorrow if my wife wouldn't kill me if I did. But it filled that need, that desire to serve, and I was able to work with some of the best men and women this country had to offer. It gave me a perspective that I would have never had I not just been in the military, but being in the military in a combat environment really gives you a different perspective and kind of teaches you what's important and sometimes what's not that important. And so in 2018, I finished my reserve time. I was honorably discharged as a lieutenant colonel, went back to full-time medicine. My wife and I are adjusting to being empty nesters now. Both of our children have flown the nest, but they still come back for laundry and food, obviously. But
not completely off the payroll yet.
No, not off the payroll. But I think that this opportunity to run for the House is to fill that need for service. I'm not, and I've told people this, and I think Jason would agree. I'm not a show pony. I'm a workhorse. And my philosophy is if I go up there, I have a job. The bosses are the thousands of people in my district. I report to them. I'm accountable to them. And it's not about me. It's about doing the things my community needs. And I think that this will fill that gap of needing something for service. And God willing, if I'm successful, I'm going to look forward to it.
Well, I know you will be. And I think you come to it with the right approach. There's a reason you're on this show, and that's because I have a fondness for you, and I know that you'll be a great legislator. And Republican or Democrat, people they always want they want to frame it as we're always in a fight and not working together. When the reality is, at least at the North Carolina House and Senate, there's some issues we disagree on, but a good majority of what we work on is really about camaraderie and understanding, and for people from different walks of life, different communities, finding a way to find compromise and get things done. And I think that your perspective in that, I think, will be a great addition to the House and quite frankly to the General Assembly. You have the right perspective. Folks don't. I see candidates sometimes that are running for office, and they're going to tell everybody in Raleigh how they were so stupid, and that they must have been waiting, on you to get here. So you can set everyone right. It's interesting. It might get votes, but the reality is that's not how a deliberative body works. Nobody gets elected to be dictator. Nobody gets their way all the time. And quite frankly, those who understand how to navigate the process can be really effective. And I think that's where you will really shine Again, not to be a show pony, but to do things for your district, to do things for the people of the state. You've already done it. You understand what it means to serve. So I think that in and of itself prepares you for that. But I go back to you've got a bigger and better understanding of what it means to be a North Carolinian, to come from, maybe not from a place of real privilege, but where you can make it. And that's what I think most legislators, the ones I know and the ones I work with, that's what they want to see happen. Whatever political bin we come from. And I think you'll do great with that. Now, you are conservative, and so we're not trying to soft pedal who you are. I mean, you've got your values, right. and I think that will matter too, because we're the Republicans are in the majority. I think it will remain in the majority, and if you're able to come join us, I think you hit the ground running right away, and with your different areas of understanding, I think you'll be a real success.
Well, I appreciate that, Jason, and I promise I will have a work ethic that will rival anyone. And and I'll tell folks, I'm not sugarcoating it. I'm a proud conservative. I'm an unapologetic conservative. I can sit down with anyone and make a good argument that there's no segment of political philosophy that has shown greater mobility for the less fortunate than conservatism. And so I hope to bring that to Raleigh, but I think you're right, as I think that it's important to understand that you're going to think differently than others up there, but that is not a disqualifier to give other people respect and grace. And, I also understand when I get up there, I'm going to be working for the people that voted for me, and I'm also going to be working for the people that didn't vote for me. And I want them to be able to approach me and call me for whatever they need. You don't have to be in my fan club for me to work for you. And I think that if you're in that kind of office and you don't have that philosophy, you really need to question what you're doing there. And are you there for the right reasons?
Well, that's right. I've had, through my time there, had a few interactions where we're kind of the last ditch effort. And quite frankly, it's a few people who didn't want to call my office, but knew that they had to deal with the state legislature to kind of achieve what they needed to achieve, and have come back and been very complimentary afterwards, going, well, you kind of went above and beyond, just being nice and courteous, and look, we give what we get, right? If you have the right approach, but that's the same way it should be with everything in life, right? As long as you're not a general, lack of a better term, butthead, you can navigate, and so I think you have that perspective as well, that you're not there just to spike the ball. You're not there just to show everyone, here's who I am and how great I am. This is what we can do together. And that's the fun part about it. When you really can help people, you've done it in your life, and sometimes, you get to help people at their worst, when things are not going well for them. I've been a volunteer firefighter, and, a lot of times when I see people, that is not at their best, right? It is at their worst, and things have happened to them. So you've definitely seen that on the battlefield. You've seen it in your medical work, but you've seen it too, really. I mean, sometimes people arrive at community college because they're desperate. Things haven't worked out for them, and they give it, this is a one last shot. This is kind of a Hail Mary. So we'll do more than that. We're talking with Dr. Grant Campbell. He is running for State House. He's running for District 83. That is Cabarrus and Rowan counties. We'll be back after the break. We really appreciate you listening. Grant is one of those rock star candidates that we've recruited, and we're looking forward to getting him to the legislature. You're listening to All Things Saine here on WSIC. I'm your host, State Representative Jason Saine. We'll be right back in just a few moments.
Keep it right here. All Things Saine with NC Representative Jason Saine will return after this short break on 105.9, 100.7 WSIC.
You guys can get it after a while. So.
Well, the first of two blasts of
all right, guys, should be about 2 minutes, all right?
Starting out in the upper teens.
All right, thank you.
Starting out in the mid-teens. Cold all day, even with sunshine. We're staying in the 30s for our Wednesday. Back down into the teens tonight. Getting a little bit warmer as we climb up into the low 40s for our Thursday and Friday. Getting cold again with teens and 30s on the way by the upcoming weekend. And that's your forecast from the WSIC Weather Center. Stay warm. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
Here is your WSIC community calendar. Having performed all over the world, written hit songs, and mentored artists, Rocky Lynn is making another stop here at home, playing at Caine Center for the Arts this Saturday. Listen each weekday morning for your chance to win tickets and meet and greet passes. And come hang out with us prior to the show. WSIC will be in front of Caine Center for the Arts from 6 to 7 p.m. Rocky Lynn this Saturday, cainearts.org. That's CAIN arts.org. Mooresville Parks and Recreation presents the Hitmen of Country, playing at the Charles Mack Citizen Center Friday, January 19th. Love country music? The Hitmen of Country have toured and recorded with some of the country's greatest artists, like Keith Urban, Trace Adkins, Travis Tritt, and Jason Aldean. For more information, go to visitmooresville.com. That's visitmooresville.com. Birkdale on Ice is still going on through January 28th. Time to lace up your skates and hit the ice. To make sure you can skate when you want, we recommend you making a reservation. For skate session info, including times and pricing, visit birkdalevillage.com. Want to attend the Greater Charlotte Home and Landscape Show? How about the Charlotte Home and Remodeling Show? Throughout the day, you have your chance to win tickets. Listen each day to Good Morning LKN, the Home Ad Show, the News Drive at 5, and the Scoreboard. Each show gives you your chance to win. The Greater Charlotte Home and Garden Show, February 23rd through the 25th. The Charlotte Home and Remodeling Show,
All right,
January
guys, 30
26th
seconds.
through the 28th. Have an event you'd like to tell people about? Yard sales, estate sales, and everything in between? Visit WSICnews.com and click on events to submit your event today.
Breaking
All
news,
right,
expert
15.
analysis, and the stories that matter
10.
most, all in one place.
I totally acknowledge seeing flames
5.
Is a scary situation.
WSIC News Talk Now.
And welcome back to All Things Saine here on WSIC. I am your host, State Representative Jason Saine. Joining me today is Dr. Grant Campbell. He's a candidate for State House. He's running in District 83. It is comprised of Cabarrus and Rowan counties. He's been a candidate before through a little legal mishap, not him, but by others as they were challenging districts. He became not a candidate, but this time he's got the district that he's running in and running hard. He's going to be running in that March primary, that first Tuesday in March. Grant Campbell, thanks for being on the show.
It's a pleasure, my friend.
Well, it's great to have you. A longtime friend, first time a visitor to the show, but it's great to have you on. And as your career launches here, as far as the State House goes, I bet we'll have these conversations a lot, and glad to do it with you. There are a lot of issues that bring people to the polls. And I was just downtown in Charlotte a couple of weeks ago with Tart McCarry, a councilman there in Charlotte who's been on the show a good bit, good friend. We gamed together among other things. And we were talking about, some of the crime that's happening in downtown Charlotte, a beautiful city, which has been safe most of my life. I've not been scared to go downtown, but to a rash of things that are happening there, even in Raleigh, we're seeing a lot of that being reported. I know that the part-time that I have to spend up there, and I live downtown when I'm there, we're just seeing a lot of pickup in crime. Are you hearing that on the campaign trail? Are people talking about it?
Very much so. And I think that, we've heard talks about activist judges and things like that. But I think one thing that's getting ignored that needs more attention is something that's terribly abused in the justice system right now. And it's prosecutorial discretion, where DAs and prosecutors are making personal and political decisions of who to prosecute, who to not prosecute, who to offer bail, who not to. And I think that what bothers me about that is that you have criminals now that know that they can do criminal acts and be prosecuted very mildly or not prosecuted at all. And jobs like the DA and prosecutors and the attorney general, they don't have a real good, in my personal opinion, a good example to follow with that. And I'll give you a metaphor for that, if I may, is, their job, your job is to do the job, and your personal feelings need to be set aside. And the story that I'll tell you, I think this was third deployment in Afghanistan, there was a firefight where some Taliban insurgents attacked our entry point. They were trying to get inside our operating base, and we were able to push them back. But one of the Taliban insurgents was pretty severely wounded. And, you know, by military doctrine, if friend or foe, if they're wounded and we're there, we're going to take care of them. So this guy was loaded into a vehicle brought to what's called the forward surgical team, which is us. And in the vehicle, from the firefight to us, he tried to kill two of the soldiers in the vehicle. So when he arrives to our forward surgical unit, his ankles and wrists are zip tied to the stretcher. And usually when casualties come to us, is we put our weapons in the locker, but we were told we had to keep our weapons on us. And as I'm evaluating this guy, they said, look, if he breaks free, you guys need to shoot him because he will kill you if he gets a second to do it. So we start evaluating him, and we get a mortar and a rocket attack. So in that, I'm taking care of a patient. I can't go to the bunker. And by rule, what I do is I drape myself over this wounded Taliban insurgent. And I'll get, personally, I was probably thinking, you know, here I am shielding with my own body this guy that would rip my throat out if he had the option. But that's the job. You know, by Geneva Conventions and Army doctrine, you take care of people. And if there's a patient under your care, whether it's friend or foe, you're responsible for them. And I see prosecutors and the AG and the DA the same way. You have a job. Someone does a crime and you are there to prosecute them and to bring accountability to them. And also, by default, by doing your job, you create deterrence for criminals that are still out there to say, well, look, if I do this, I'm going to pay the price. And so you have to put those personal things beside you. You do the job. And I think that we've seen it with judges for a while. We're seeing it more with DAs now than I think we ever have been. And I think that, you know, the legislature has a role in holding them accountable. We need help from the governor and the AG. We're not really getting that right now. Hopefully that's going to change. But we need to say these things. If we're really concerned about crime, then I think the first step is to hold criminals accountable for crime. And then maybe the other guy that's thinking about crime will say, well, look what happened to that guy. Maybe I need to do something a little bit different. I just think, just like a legislature, there's sometimes you have to put your personal feelings aside and do the job that you swore that you would do. And I think that that's not getting enough attention, and we're going to have to bang that drum a little bit harder.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. You know, we can hope for the best in people, but the reality is, our duty is to protect citizens of the state, right? And right. to make sure that we're utilizing all the tools that we can with respect to individual rights and so forth. And part of respecting individual rights is making sure that other individuals aren't committing crime and impacting the freedom of others in our state. And so. I think it's past time. Honestly, it's a shame that we're all right now. I think a lot of us, particularly when we go to bigger cities, but it's even leaking out into your district and my district of you know, a lot of this most of it petty crime, but there's a lot of violent crime happening too. And so, you know, people, when they don't feel safe, you know, society remains on edge. And I think it is past time to do that. It can be done. You know, just, I mean, your example there, I mean, we're all dedicated, I think, to making sure that we have a free society, that people can make choices, and you've got a right to be wrong. But the minute that what your actions, when they start impacting my personal freedom and my ability to operate in a free society, then we have to step up, and we have to hold elected officials accountable too. And we have to make sure that our district attorneys are prosecuting, that, you know, the mess around and find out. I mean, you know, if you're going to, I think it really is going to take making some examples of some people, not giving them free passes, but saying, no, we're not going to tolerate that as society. I always tell our son, you know, you become what you tolerate. And if you tolerate this, and that's what we become. And so I think you're hearing it, I'm hearing it. And look, and we come from one of the safer places in the state. But it's so close to us, and people are very mobile now. Right. We're going to have to be creative and find ways to empower those who are prosecuting, and go after the bad guys so that the rest of society can prosper.
I mean, I agree. You said it perfectly. I'm lucky. Cabarrus and Rowan, our prosecutors get it, and they're doing the job that they're supposed to. But look, I grew up in the eastern part of the state. I've got friends and family all over the state, and I want everybody to be able to enjoy that security. And it doesn't seem that hard of a recipe that if you're a prosecutor, maybe you should prosecute. And maybe I'm not, I've always said I'm 3 years from a law degree, but I still think that probably makes sense. So I just kind of want, you and I, we live in communities where, the prosecutors are protecting us and doing their jobs, but I want everybody in the state to be able to enjoy that.
Well, I can remember when I started at UNC Charlotte and moved in with a buddy of mine on campus who went to one of the neighboring high schools, and we knew each other, good friends. And then one of my best friends from my high school. And the fourth person was a guy from Long Island, New York. And let me just say, he talked different than we did. Great guy, but he had a history of
teach him how to say y'all.
That's right. We had to learn what pie was. It was something very different to him. And but a good guy, but had a history of mix-ups with the law and theft and things of that nature. And so we asked him one day. We said, I won't say his name, but I said, well, what keeps you from doing it here? He goes, oh, you guys are crazy. You got guns, and your police will go after you. It's like, well, okay, fair enough. That's a good deterrent. But the follow-up on that was the police will go after you. And in his mind, the police, the district attorneys, there's a consequence for what you do.
Right.
And he'd come from a place where there wasn't many consequences. Now he's, made his home here in North Carolina, great guy. So, but I remember those early days, and as three guys from here, we were a little skeptical of the guy from New York, but ended up being a great friend. But people just expect that here. And again, if we tolerate it, we become it. If we don't tolerate it, we won't be that. And so that'll be a challenge that you'll get to join us on working on. There's never a lack of challenges at the legislature. As you're aware, it is just life as we take it. We'll move forward through it. But you're running District 83. The primary is it's March
5th.
Since I'm not on about March 5th. It's nice not to have a primary, but you do have a primary.
Just rub it in. Just rub it in.
You need folks to come out and vote for you, and so they need to keep that on their calendar. I guess voting starts in 6 weeks, maybe even sooner.
February 15th. Early voting starts February 15th. Come early.
February 15th. Yeah. Come early and vote. You do have the option to do that in North Carolina. Go out, do your civic duty. Grant, I know you're out there shaking hands and meeting people, trying to really let them know who you are. I think today's show is a great way to do that. Glad to have you on. We'll have you on again as topics arise. But good luck to you in your race.
Well, I appreciate it, my friend. It's always good to see you, brother.
Well, good to see you, and really just a stand-up guy, Grant Campbell. He is running for District 83. So if you live in Rowan or Cabarrus counties, give him a look. He's doing a great job running for office. Good friend. Glad to have you on today. You're listening to All Things Saine. You can find us on the podcast. If you caught us live today, that's wonderful. But if you don't get a chance to catch us live, you can watch us on YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter. Download us with your favorite podcast material. However you do it, you can find us. Glad to have you. We'll be back next week, every Wednesday, 11 to 12. Thanks for listening here on WSIC. We'll be back next Wednesday. In the meantime, if you need to get a hold of me, it's jason.saine@ncleg.gov. Glad to hear from you. Thanks for listening.
105.9, 100.7 WSIC, Statesville, Mooresville, North Charlotte.
That should be it.
All right.
Good job, guys.